Okay, continuing on with the notes for Chapter 2, we're going to look at sections 4 and 5 of your notes in this video and begin by talking about satellite. In 1945, Arthur Clarke wrote an article theorizing that global satellite communication could be possible. So at this point, it's just a concept, but it doesn't really become true reality until 1962, about 17 years later, when TelStar becomes the first satellite TV transmission to take place. And it's a report from David Brinkley, live from France, over to the United States. That was revolutionary for the time. These days, it's nothing for us to see a live broadcast from halfway around the world, but this was the first time that it was able to happen in live real time in this sort of way. Fast forward to 1976, home box office, making its premium service available, was the first network to make practical use of something like this for something that wasn't a news-related sort of thing. It aired the boxing match between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier in the Thrilla in Manila. And it was quite the thing to be able to watch that live boxing match back then. Ted Turner, hopping on as one of the pioneers of cable television, he begins rebroadcasting his local Atlanta TV station nationwide, WTBS, which is what we know of as TBS today. And they had some rather unique programming schemes that they used, and we'll be talking about some of those as we go along in the course. But then the Christian Broadcasting Network, CBN, becomes the first satellite-delivered basic cable network. So we're talking about stuff that's made available as part of the regular cable package. Home box office was the first to be distributed that wasn't a regular broadcast TV station, but it was a premium service that you paid for separately. CBN becomes available free to any and every cable operator to distribute along with the broadcast programming that it had been offering. In 1984, the Cable Communications Policy Act legalized the private reception of satellite TV programming. What this means is that you can now, as a consumer, receive a satellite signal at your home and don't necessarily need to pick it up from some service that's receiving it for you. Home dishes become more affordable and more popular, especially in rural areas that are unlikely to be served by cable TV. We still have a lot of areas, even in our area, where cable TV is not an option. You can't buy it if you wanted to because the cable TV lines do not run down that particular street. I lived in a place like that for a while. I could not subscribe to cable TV if I wanted to. So satellite makes it possible for people to be able to get television in areas where it's underserved by local broadcasts. Maybe it's hard to pick something up on an antenna, or that cable TV just does not serve at all. The concept was known as direct-to-home satellite, using a 3-meter wide TV receive-only dish, 3 meters, about 10 feet in diameter. So those are the larger satellite dishes that were more prominent in the 80s. That's how people received satellite programming when it first came out. A lot larger than what we think of as a satellite dish today. Speaking of which, the satellite dish that we receive today is known as DBS, Direct Broadcast Satellite. And it does make it so that people don't have to have a lot of real estate or have a huge piece of equipment in their backyard in order to receive satellite programming. Something that we don't see as much of today that was a thing for a while is something called MMDS, multi-channel multipoint distribution systems. What this did was it made use of short-range microwave transmissions to be able to beam channels of video programming from a central transmitter location. And it would tend to be used in areas where, for whatever reason, it was just rather difficult for television reception to receive wireless broadband services, that sort of thing. And it is still used in a lot of places internationally, not so much in the United States, but it is still a thing. Home video. Taking a look at the history of recording, the history of taping things. It kind of began in terms of being able to tape things for later use on television stations, and that was done rather by means of the kinescope recorder. The kinescope was a film camera especially equipped to shoot an image from a TV screen. Now, it resulted in rather poor quality, but it made it possible for things to be saved for later use. And then in 1956, it got a whole lot easier with the videotape recorder, the VTR. This was used by TV stations, network, and production facilities, because up to that point, all television that was on the screen, that was broadcast, was done live. This made it possible to record something and play it back at a later time, or take it to another station and air it on another station at a later time. A huge revolution in television watching came about in 1975 with the advent of the video cassette recorder, the VCR. The Sony Betamax was the first one to be made available to consumers. And with the VCR, you could record live television programming at home. Well, there were television stations and production companies that were a little concerned about that. You know, TV stations were worried that people weren't going to be watching programs when they were airing, that it would affect their ratings. Production companies were afraid that people were going to record the shows and they basically get content for free, not paying them to watch it. Supreme Court addressed that in 1984 in the Betamax case. Supreme Court said that home taping does not violate copyright law. So it made it legal for the consumer to record something at home and watch it and play it back for their own private use. We also see, we talked about the Betamax. A lot of people these days didn't know that there was a different methodology, a different format that you could record using videotape. Most of us are familiar with the VHS, the Video Home System. That was developed in 1977. And it's what won the format war between Beta and VHS. VHS had longer playback abilities and longer recording abilities. You could set your basic videotape for a VHS system to record for 2 hours, 4 hours, or 6 hours. The Betamax, you could only record for 90 minutes, for 3 hours, or for 4.5 hours. However, Beta had the better picture quality. So there was sort of that ongoing battle between the two formats, basically being a decision of convenience as opposed to quality. Well, convenience won out in the consumer market. VHS won the format war, although Betamax continued to be used by television stations well after it lost favor with the general public. Time shifting is the act of recording TV shows off the air for later viewing. That was what caused the case in 1984. Home viewing recording by means of camcorders were also becoming more popular, and they started off as combinations of cameras and VCR units. It wound up replacing the use of 8mm film for making home movies. And then, of course, as time went along, camcorders became more and more compact, that you didn't need to lug a separate VCR along with the camera. It contained everything in-house, and became very, very popular with those that wanted to make home movies. DVDs make everything digital. DVD standing for Digital Versatile Disc, providing more content at a better quality. And then the DVR comes along so that you can record programs onto a hard disk as well. Video stores getting video by mail, becoming hugely popular in the late 80s into the 90s. Rental stores first making VHS available and then DVD. Also video on demand, VOD, being made available as a thing from cable and satellite services. We tend to think of that as the on-demand viewing that we see on cable services now. Netflix becoming popular with DVD rental via mail, which now, as we know, is an online sort of thing. And Redbox, which is still available for us in many areas where we can go and rent a DVD or these days a Blu-ray disc as well. So that's a good point here to take a break, and part C will continue on with these notes for Chapter 2, so make sure you check out that video.